Hello, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, where we talk about metal, rock, and prog music. And today I'm doing a special kind of video. I'm stealing this idea. I saw Nathan on Shuffle do a video like this. I'm going to talk about the big six of classic prog rock. And I'm going to give my favorite six, which are different from the big six. So there's some overlap. And I'll talk about some of my favorite albums from my big six. But first, let's talk about who are kind of the generally agreed upon big six artists of progressive rock. Of course, these are all bands that started back, before 1980, so there won't be any modern prog bands on this list. But the generally agreed upon consensus of the progressive rock community is that the big six is Yes, Genesis, Pink Floyd, King Crimson, Jethro Tull, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And, I totally get it. All those bands are great, and they were popular and influential and early in the game in progressive rock. I think Rush is bigger than some of those bands, in particular, like bigger than King Crimson. And now, I think they've had more staying power than bands like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Jethro Tull. So while those bands may have been bigger than Rush at a point in time, I feel like Rush is bigger than both of those, than King Crimson, Jethro Tull, and ELP now, and probably earns a spot in the big six. So now let me give my personal big six, which has a little bit of overlap. There's three of the official big six are in my big six, but I've got three different ones. And I'll start with my number six, which is an Italian band, Banco del Mutuo Cercoso, my favorite Italian progressive rock band. And my favorite three albums from them are their first three albums. Their second one, Darwin, from 1972, is probably my favorite. Then their self-titled debut from 1972, and then Io Sono Nato Libero from 1973. Great stuff. So I wanted to put a non-English speaking band on my big six, and that's the one that I went with. And then my number five favorite classic prog rock band that had their debut album before 1980. That's how I'm defining classic. I think I'm going to make another video like this, but talking about modern prog rock bands and give my big six there. And then if people like that, I might do a big six of prog metal and kind of do big six in various genres. So my number five band in the classic prog rock would be Gentle Giant, an amazing, underrated band that I think a lot of people that are really into prog rock know about them and love them, but they never quite had the popularity of the official big six. But my favorite three albums by Gentle Giant are Freehand from 1975, that being my favorite, Octopus from 1972 as my next one, and The Power and the Glory from 1974. Love all those albums. Love Gentle Giant's quirkiness and their counterpoint vocal harmonies and their medieval vibes and weirdness, and the fact that they managed to be one of the most progressive bands without ever making super long songs, and all of their songs are very concise and fun and to the point, and very original, very unique band. Love Gentle Giant. And my number four is one that's actually in the official big six. It's Pink Floyd. You can see their poster there behind me. And my favorite three Pink Floyd albums are Wish You Were Here from 1975 as my favorite, Dark Side of the Moon from 1973, and Animals from 1977. Just an awesome, and all those three albums came out three in a row. An awesome three-album run, one of the best in prog history, very iconic. And yeah, I love a lot of their other albums as well, but those three are really the cream of the crop. And my number three in my favorite, my personal big six of classic prog rock is Yes. and they're also in the official Big Six. And my favorite 3 albums from them is also 3 that came out in a row, just like with Pink Floyd and Banco del Mucho Cercoso. Some of these bands just have a golden period. Gentle Giant actually had had the longest golden period, where like they were pretty solid almost throughout their whole discography. But Yes's golden period for me, well, my favorite is Fragile from 1971, then Close to the Edge from 1972, and the Yes album that preceded those two in 1971. Those 3 albums in a row, and they continued greatness for a while after that as well. And I think they're kind of the archetype for prog rock. Like, if there's one band that kind of defines what the prog rock sound is, I think Yes is kind of the perfect poster child for the genre. But I've got them at my 3rd favorite classic prog rock band. Now, my 2nd favorite classic prog rock band is King Crimson, which some say are the band that kind of invented prog rock, or maybe just had the first prog rock album. I don't think they necessarily invented it. There are definitely some bands doing progressive rock before, like the Moody Blues and Procol Harum. But they might have, those bands, Moody Blues and Procol Harum, are more like proto prog. They might have kind of just made a couple progressive songs and brought in some symphonic elements. And I do think it makes sense that In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson from 1969 is the first like full-blown progressive rock album. But there are also some weird albums from Frank Zappa that came out before that, and so maybe he could have been making the first prog rock albums as well. That maybe that's a topic for another video of what is the actual first progressive rock album. But a lot of people say King Crimson, and they're definitely a really solid band. Even really hard to pick a favorite 3 albums for them because they're also really consistent and they never put out anything bad. There's only one album of theirs that I don't really love, which is Islands. But I love pretty much every other King Crimson album. And I'm weird when it comes to picking my King Crimson favorites because I love the Adrian Belew era. And then some of my favorites are from like really late in their career. So a couple of my favorites are The Power to Believe, their last album from 2003, and The Construction of Light from 2000. I like how they kind of have this more metal edge to them, being a fan of progressive metal. And then, of course, another one of my favorites is the debut In the Court of the Crimson King from 1969. But really, you could pick any 3 King Crimson albums that aren't Islands, and those could be my 3 favorite because I love all their albums. And then my number 1 classic prog rock band is Rush, who I think should probably even be in the official Big Six, but maybe they aren't because they started later than all the bands of the official Big Six. Like Rush's first album came out in 1974, whereas every other band in the Big Six already had several albums released by then. And Rush is Canadian, whereas every band in the Big Six is from the UK. So those are probably the reasons why Rush isn't in there. But my favorite 3 Rush albums are Moving Pictures, Permanent Waves, and A Farewell to Kings. But really, anything after their debut, between that and Moving Pictures, could really be, you can't go wrong. They're very consistent as well in that period. They changed a bit in the mid to late 80s, and then they change again in the 90s. So I prefer like their 70s and early 80s stuff. But they're my favorite classic progressive rock band. So that's my Big Six versus the Big Six. And I still love, so I omitted Genesis, Jethro Tull, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I kicked them out of my Big Six to make room for Gentle Giant, Rush, and Banco del Mucho Circoso. But if I was to pick a seventh, I would put Genesis at number 7. They're definitely deserving. But if I had to go further, I don't know when Jethro Tull and Emerson, Lake and Palmer would pop in to my classic prog favorite bands, because I also like Mike Oldfield might be my number 8, Styx at number 9. Then I'd probably put Jethro Tull at number 10, Kansas at number 11, Frank Zappa at number 12, the Alan Parsons Project at number 13, and then probably Emerson, Lake and Palmer would be my 14th. So I put all the big 6 in my top 14 classic prog rock bands, but those are some other kind of honorable mentions that almost made my top 6. What do you think? What would be your favorite 6 prog rock bands that put out their debut albums before 1980, so qualify as classic? And are you interested in seeing another video like this on my thoughts on modern prog rock bands? There's not as much of a consensus of who the big 6 is for that, but I might try to come up with like a more objective big 6 of modern prog rock based on popularity, and then my favorite 6, and kind of compare and contrast again. And I might do this for other genres in the future if people like this kind of video. Been thinking about doing one for prog metal, maybe post-hardcore, metalcore, alternative metal, mathcore, alternative rock, things like that. Let me know down in the comments below if that sounds good to you. And if you like metal, rock, and prog music, you're in the right place. Hit that thumbs up button and hit that subscribe button so you can stay in the loop when I post new videos. I mostly have been talking about new music for 2026, and this is just a great video topic to have an excuse to talk about some older music that I love as well. But if you're wanting to keep up with new music, my next video, I'll be talking about my first impressions of new albums from the Deer Hunter, Garia, Poison the Well, Exodus, and Tusmork. So stay tuned for that, and peace out.